left people with the inability to drink. Of history.
They lose their job. What are they going to go do? Like, they get to go home and do dishes.
Since the beginning of time, my good friend Ryan likes to say, people like to get fucked up.
What are they going to do? Build a pyramid?
Thank you for joining us this week, and welcome to
Bottle Bond. I don't like that. Welcome, everybody, to Bottle Bond. Yeah, here we are. Welcome back. I am really excited about this episode.
I am also having bourbon.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about this episode. Weller is actually one of those distilleries where you see it all the time, and you're like, who?
Stitzel-Weller is one of the big ones. I mean, We're talking about Pappy Van Winkle today. We're talking about Hornsby. We're talking this is one of those big Kentucky bourbon things. In fact, they were one of. We're talking about them in Prohibition today. They had a license there in Prohibition and such. It's this is one of the big distilleries, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
We're not touching on the whole Prohibition space, though, are we?
No, that's all what we're doing. We're only talking about Prohibition today.
Okay.
So we're not going to talk about Weller and it as a distillery so much as we're going to talk about Stitzel-Weller and Weller, W.L. Weller and Sons, and how that and Prohibition worked.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let's do it.
Up to this point, we talked about where bourbon comes from. We talked about Elijah Craig, and we talked about Evan Williams, and we talked about James Crowe, and we talked about the Whiskey Rebellion and George Washington and Baumburger's Distillery, and
Shanks.
And Shanks, yeah, Shanks Distillery. So we've been really building up our knowledge in this early space. So now we've got to go to one of the most important things that has happened in alcohol in America and ultimately in the world. It had worldwide reaching consequences. Prohibition. Now, if you don't know what Prohibition is, basically drinking alcohol became illegal for a while.
Well, not drinking alcohol.
Well, drinking, manufacturing, selling, getting, just alcohol.
Drinking, I don't think they made illegal. Just buying, selling, reselling, carrying, holding, possessing.
Yes.
So if you could miraculously materialize it in your mouth,
you were fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah, and I mean, which is, of course, what a lot of people did.
It's very reminiscent of what's going on with marijuana today.
Yeah, I mean,
it's totally fine as long as you can divinely create it directly in your bloodstream.
I mean, honestly, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting because Prohibition serves really, really well as an example of
everything to do wrong.
Yeah, well, just when we get it wrong.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's take a couple steps back. All right, January 16th, 1920, the Volstead Act passes. And the Volstead Act starts Prohibition.
Did it, not to split hairs,
Sure.
This is probably a homework thing.
Sure.
Did it go into effect or did it pass?
I'm going to say it passed, but only because I've had 3 whiskeys thus far, and I'm comfortable saying it passed, but I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure it went into effect that day.
Could be that way too. So basically, Prohibition originally was a social movement. It was largely religious. It was a part of the temperance movement, which was a religious movement that was going on at the time, looking for purity and all this other stuff. But you have things?
I have facts. It was enacted in 1919, and then it took effect in 1920.
There it is.
I was right. It went into effect on January 16th.
1920, and it was passed in 1919.
Poly, many ticks, blood-sucking insects.
Many blood-sucking insects?
Yeah.
Pro, opposite of con, progress.
Opposite of Congress.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, coming back to it. Okay, so basically, the temperance movement is going on. It's fighting for purity across the country. Gets some lobbying support, and Prohibition gets passed. Prohibition, like you were saying, prevents pretty much anything to do with alcohol. Basically, they were talking a whole bunch about how alcohol got fathers away from their families and all this sort of stuff, and that's where a lot of Prohibition comes from.
That's definitely the root cause.
Yeah, it's definitely, alcohol is definitely the thing to blame there. So, as this discussion is going on in the country, pre-1920, you've got medical professionals a part of this. And you got them on both sides. You got people talking about how alcohol is bad, it's a poison, it's not good for you. But you also have people talking about some of the benefits of alcohol, the way it helps with anxiety and the way it helps with sleeping and the way some of those other things. So there were medical reasons to use alcohol.
Yeah.
Now, nowadays we have better things to use than a bottle of whiskey to solve stuff. But I mean, like, even...
Do we?
Even today, like, if I've got a sore throat, I'll take a swig of whiskey to see if it solves it. If, I've heard of, all kinds of stuff that are the home remedies.
Not gonna lie, actually, on that note, right? Like, of all of the things, if my wife is down and out and feeling like shit,
Yeah.
one of the ultimate wins is if I just make her a hot toddy, which is essentially whiskey and honey and lemon.
Yeah.
And that'll level her for like 2.5 days, and then she'll come up the other side singing and dancing.
That's perfect.
She's like, "Whoa, it's perfect."
Yeah, and I mean, so like, there's a reason people drink this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there's legitimate goodness there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of medical professionals on both sides, and ultimately that led so that when Prohibition was founded and when it came about, there were licenses left open that distilleries could apply for to make medicinal spirits. Just basically make whiskey for doctors to prescribe, since alcohol was illegal across the country.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was it was a real big thing. So you got Prohibition.
Stitzel-Weller is one of the distilleries.
Yes,
right?
they are. One step back. So Prohibition goes into effect January 16th, 1920, and we see a massive economic recession. We watch the whiskey industry itself collapse. 90% of the 1,500 functioning distilleries in the country went under and just disappeared at that point in time. This hit local economies really bad, and it created massive unemployment, because not only did you suddenly have all the workers at the distilleries that were out of a job, but you also had all the farm hands who grew the grain for those distilleries,
Yep.
all the supply chain people, all the teamsters that carted stuff, all of that. All of them were suddenly out of a job, and it made lots of unemployment, lots of economic hardship. And ultimately, it also left people with the inability to drink. And people, I mean, for all of
They
history,
lose their job. What are they going to go do? Like, they
They're-
get to go home and do dishes.
yeah, like...
What the fuck?
Yeah,
it's horrible.
That's not going to happen, right? Like,
Yeah.
since the beginning of time, my good friend Ryan likes to say, people like to get fucked up. And, it holds
What are
true.
they going to do? Build a pyramid?
Okay, so at this point, we see the rise of bootlegging and organized crime. We see the rise of, like, speakeasies and jazz, like the jazz culture and all of that. And, I mean, there are monumental resources if you want to know more about speakeasies and jazz culture and organized crime and bootlegging and, all that sort of stuff. There are places to go for that. But the point here is that was all directly a result of Prohibition, of a bunch of people being like, we should just, like, live more pure lives.
Yep.
And it turned into Al Capone and dead people and murders and like literally the government could not keep up with
Right.
illegal alcohol and like people distilling their own, making like getting poisoned because they tried to distill pine boards and make
Yep.
rot gut and stuff. And yeah, it is.
Wait, but the Bottled and Bond Act had already passed, so clearly
Well, but
people weren't doing anything illegal anymore.
but all alcohol's already illegal.
Oh, right. Oops.
Yeah, so what's it matter if you're gonna make a little bit at home? Right?
Retcon the law, yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough time. Yeah,
But there were a few distilleries that were granted a reprieve, right?
yes, there were 6 distilleries.
6 or 9? I thought it was
6.
9.
There may have been 9 licenses, but there were some untaken licenses.
Yes, right, yes.
So there were 6 distilleries that were granted the right to still make and sell alcohol medicinally, similar to medical marijuana for a while we had there.
Yep.
And doctors would prescribe it.
Yep.
And one of those 6 distilleries was W.L. Weller and Sons. And that is who we're drinking today.
I'm going to pause for a quick math interlude.
Sure.
Because we all need that. So you said 90% of the 1,500 existing distilleries went under.
Yeah, they just disappeared.
So that meant there was only 150 that were left through the Depression. Of those, only 6
Yes.
were granted a license to operate during the Great Depression.
Yes. The
Or
others.
I'm sorry, I was confusing Prohibition with Depression.
Yeah.
Clearly, they're not the same thing.
But
But clearly, Prohibition was a very depressing time. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for certain.
So there were 6 distilleries of
Correct.
the 150 that survived.
Now, that's 150 that survived. And let's be clear, this isn't a hard 150. This is a rough 150.
Yeah, of course.
Of those ones that survived, like they opened their doors again after. Like Jim Beam's a good example. Prohibition was annulled, and the next day, Jim Beam opened its doors again.
Which is wild because, it's crazy that they were able to age bourbon for 4 years the day.
I don't know if they were aging. They may have just started distilling again. Or they might have had back stock and then started selling stuff they
Yeah,
had from
clearly
before.
that's what happened.
Something like that. There definitely would never, ever be anything.
Nobody ever circumvented the law in any way at all.
Nope, never, ever. Not anywhere that I've ever
So
seen.
anyway.
Yes. So, like think about that. 1,500 becomes 150. Like that's
Becomes 6.
Becomes 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Distilleries were forced to either adapt or close, and
That's
there was nothing
less
else to
than
be done.
1% of the existing business was allowed to survive.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, honestly, like I don't want this to become a political podcast, but I will say, like, it's an indication of what happens when you do just big, wide,
Feed the 1%,
sweeping
yeah.
things for reasons that aren't economical, right? Like,
Yep.
you've got a thing. It's like, everybody's worried about the morality of a glass of whiskey. Well, all right. Bring down the economy for it, I guess.
Yep.
Anyway, so like I said, W.L. Weller and Sons. Now, so Weller was originally founded as W.L. Weller and Brothers,
Okay.
as a distillery, and it was owned for a little bit, and then in 1849 is when it was founded. 1893, we have the introduction of a name that people might know. A young man by the name of Julian P. Pappy Van Winkle was hired by W.L. Weller and Sons at this time, distillery, as a sales rep.
As a sales rep.
Oh,
God. Okay.
Yeah.
I suddenly like Pappy a lot less.
Yeah, so he was hired to be on the floor selling whiskey. Like, that's what he did. He was hired to sell whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah.
That.
That bothers you, doesn't it?
So much about this bothers me in so many ways.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
But, like, the idea that it's a sales and marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to be said there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like,
It's almost like the scarcity is just a sales and marketing gimmick.
you don't think they could make more bottles? They could make more bottles. So, okay. Anyway, coming back to it. So, we've got Julian P. Pappy Van Winkle. He gets hired as a sales rep for the company. 1896, Weller, the guy who founded it, the original, who was really impressive, by the way. So Weller comes from a line of distillers. Literally, his dad, Samuel, was married into another distilling family.
Okay.
And so, like, his family was distillers, his dad's family was distillers, and then Weller opens up the distillery, W.L. Weller, and then
It's almost like they know what they're doing.
yeah, it's like they had some experience there. Well, so Pappy Van Winkle takes over in 1896 when Weller retires, right? He brings in Alex Fornsby, who was a friend of his at the time, and they get control of the distillery.
Okay.
And they go about, using the distillery. Now, not long after that, they met with Arthur Stitzel. Arthur Stitzel, in 1906 or something like that, founded the APH Stitzel Distillery.
Yeah.
Now, Weller and Sons for the majority of their time through Prohibition and such like that, sourced their alcohol from the Stitzel distillery.
Okay.
And so at this point, we kind of shift and we're more focused on the Stitzel distillery because they were producing the alcohol. And the Stitzel brothers, who were running the distillery, were doing all kinds of experimentation. They were trying different mash bills and different intensities and different ABVs and like different grains and all these different things. And Weller, to this day, is known as a wheated bourbon. In fact, it's one of the best wheated bourbons in the world, people would argue. Something that's very interesting, though. The Stitzel brothers, who were working with Pappy and with Hornsby and were selling them juice through Prohibition and beforehand, and then eventually that they would.
I believe during Prohibition it was called anesthesia.
And medicine.
Yes.
No, of course, that fine medicine.
Yes.
Now, so what was I saying?
Wheated bourbon.
Oh, Wheated
Stitzel
bourbon,
brothers.
yeah. Okay, so the Stitzel brothers are these big experimenters. They're experimenting with all this stuff, and they definitely experimented with wheated bourbon, but they never brought a wheated bourbon to market. They never commercially brought out a wheated bourbon, which I think is super fascinating considering that Weller is a wheated bourbon.
Right, which is why Stitzel-Weller became just Weller. Nobody knows about Stitzel.
Yeah, nobody remembers Stitzel because the wheated bourbon
They dropped the ball on wheated.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's why.
Yeah.
That was the source of their downfall.
Exactly. No, they didn't mention it earlier. There is no downfall. The Weller Distillery is one of the biggest in the world.
Nobody calls it Stitzel-Weller.
That's true. They just call it Weller because of the bottles that come from it. Coming back to the point. So, Stitzel-Weller provides some of the alcohol through Prohibition, and then, they did some really, really cool stuff too. Like, Stitzel invented these racks that you use to age barrels that are still used all over Kentucky. Like basically the racks and rick houses were invented by the Stitzels.
Okay.
For
the rotation part of it, or for
to just put barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels and rack them up in a rick house for aging. They just did some really, really cool stuff. Now Pappy at the time. So okay.
Did he make a sales quota?
I'm sure he did. So after Prohibition,
Yeah.
the APH Stitzel Distillery and W.L. Weller and Sons combined into the Stitzel-Weller Distillery that we all know and love today. And during the time period, during Prohibition, Pappy Van Winkle was the president of the company and of the Prohibition effort.
Is Julian the Pappy then?
Yeah,
right?
Julian P. Pappy.
Okay.
So he's Julian P. Van Winkle, but he went by Pappy. P. Subbed in for Pappy.
Sure.
So he was the president, and then Alex Farnsby, was the vice president, and then Stitzel was the secretary of Treasury. So the money and then the brains and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then they all merged together, became the Stitzel-Weller Distillery, and here we are.
With the signature brand named after the sales dude.
With a signature. Not only that, but the most expensive, hardest to get, most respected, most name recognized whiskey in the world is named after one of the sales reps.
I wouldn't go that far. Bourbon, not whiskey.
Good point. Bourbon.
Clearly not the most respected whiskey in the world.
Oh yeah, no. I can think of many whiskeys. That's a good call.
But that was the effect of the sales guy winning out over you, for sure.
I mean, you gotta respect it.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we're gonna open a bottle of Weller 12 on the show today. Weller 12 is incredibly difficult to get a hold of. We will do entire episodes talking about the allocated system and, bourbon hunting and all that sort of stuff. That's some of the hobby that we really enjoy. Yeah. But something that's really important.
It's a big part of why we made this into something more than just we get drunk with friends, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that I personally am a big fan of the hunting and finding and the victory of finding something like this for MSRP, not see earlier bottle crack / unbottling / bonding. See the earlier bonding episode over.
Yeah.
The people who resell this at sometimes 10x the price at a store.
Yeah.
Never mind on the secondary market.
I mean, secondhand unicorn, you can get this $250.
Yeah.
I bought this bottle for $43 MSRP.
But even that, right? Even on Unicorn, you can only get it when it's available,
Yeah.
right? So there's like one season a year, maybe, where it's widely available.
It depends, right? Like there's a lot that comes into that, and like I said, we're going to talk about bourbon hunting on another episode. But like understanding the drops, when the bourbons are coming out, and all that sort of stuff, it's a major part of the bourbon game, and especially because you're competing with secondhand sellers. Like you and I wanted to drink it. There are people who want it because they know they'll buy it for $43 and resell it for $200, $250, and I can't fault those people. I can't
That's
too
a whole
upset.
ethics debate that does not belong here.
Yeah, it's we can do that over whiskey sometime. So we're gonna crack this bottle today. And one of the things I want to say is you don't have to have bottles like this to enjoy whiskey. This is a really controversial bottle. There are people who will say this is one of the best bottles of whiskey in the world. There are people who will say they don't like it that much. That's not worth the price. Personally, this is one of my favorite whiskeys. Yeah. I'm really excited to crack this because I anticipate the bottle being gone very soon. And and I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So I will point out this is a great example of a bourbon or a whiskey that is good for a plethora of factors.
Yes.
Right? Do you like the flavor?
I do.
If you don't like the flavor, do you like the price?
I like the MSRP.
Yes. That's what I meant by price, right? So like...
But there are guys out there that they won't like the MSRP. They'll like the second hand. That's a $250 bottle of whiskey I poured you there.
Yeah, those are called liars. So MSRP is what, $46? $43?
$43 is what I paid for this.
Yeah. So $43 is what you should pay for this bottle. Mm-hmm. If you pay a little bit more...
If you pay less than $100, you're doing well.
And if you pay... Honestly, I'm a big fan of bourbons are priced what they should be priced. Mm-hmm. Like, I have run rampant on the secondary market and definitely regret a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I personally think that, like, build the relationships, find the people, put in the time. But...
Or even just try different things. Like even if you buy every $30 bottle of liquor at your local liquor store, and you try each of them so that you know what they are and how they are, and you can identify the differences, and you can isolate some of the notes that make some of them special and unique from the others. That's what you need to really get started. You don't need a crazy expensive secondhand market bottle.
Well, that's just it, right? Is that like, at the end of the day, if your price point is $30 to $50 a bottle, then like work in that space, you will find something awesome.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about, like, if your thing isn't just the exploration of all of the options.
I have had,
and you just want to enjoy some good whiskey.
Yeah, I have had some of my favorite bottles are sub $40.
Yeah,
like Lineage was one of my favorite bottles one year, and it was a $35 bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
I literally get excited when I find Old Grandad 114 on the shelf. It is a $16 to $20 bottle,
right?
And it is one of my favorite bottles on the shelf.
Right.
I will take a bottle of Old Grandad over a bottle of Glenlivet French Oak or whatever in a second. Like I just love it. It's a great pour.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, is that like you don't have to really chase some absurd like exclusive bottle just to be in some cool club. Yeah, because at the end of the day, that bottle only has so many pours in it. Exactly. And is it really worth it to you to have one bottle of whatever 27 pours or whatever the heck it is, right? Yeah. Or 300 bottles for the same price? Yeah. You could literally drink your whole life.
It's why you're drinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you drinking because you want to spend time? Like, so for instance, like I have a couple of expensive bottles, and I will pour those in groups of large people. Yep. I don't drink those alone. No. I drink those with other people because I want to share and experience that with others. Yeah. And I think that the reason that you drink is something you should consider when you decide what kind of bottles you're going to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have everybody who at some point I'm going to rope him into the show, but he talks about having a celebration bottle. For him, that's something that's like exclusive and hard to get and special. Sure. But at the end of the day, to me, like I've had a few bottles that were special to me that aren't hard to get. Yeah. They're just special to me because of where I found them in my life.
That makes sense. I can understand the celebration bottle. I've definitely had a couple of those.
So let's celebrate.
I'm gonna read the bottle. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really excited. I'm gonna use an accent. You ready? Weller, the original wheated bourbon. Aged 12 years. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. 45% alcohol by volume. 90 proof. Oh, goodness. I need the magnifying app.
Have I had too much bourbon, or am I getting old? I can't tell.
I mean, it could be either one. Could be both. I don't know. Oh, wait. Okay, here we go.
Are you reading the Surgeon General's warning?
No, it's not. It's not Surgeon General. I thought it was, but it's not.
Here, let me see.
Oh, there you go. Take it. There. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's see. Born in 1825, William LaRue Weller was... God damn it, now I can't read it because it wrapped around the bottle.
Born in 1825, William LaRue Weller was...
Where's your accent? William...
I'm an engineer. I'm not...
William LaRue
William
Weller.
LaRue Weller
There it is.
was one of the early whiskey pioneers in America.
I love you just shifted right out. You were like,
W.I.
William LaRue was one of the early pioneers.
Told you I'm an engineer. W.L. Weller marketed his original bourbon recipe with wheat rather than rye in the mash bill. Weller spent his lifetime educating consumers about the differences in his bourbon. Wheat is a soft grain, providing this bourbon with a mild, gentle, and smooth sipping experience. Weller also believed in the importance of aging his whiskey. This fine 12-year-old bourbon whiskey has a deep amber color with complex flavors of vanilla, oak, and cinnamon. A tribute to the man who made wheated bourbon legendary.
I love it.
Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Frankfort, Kentucky.
Yep, because Stitzel-Weller eventually became... Yeah, never mind.
Homogenized into the larger corporate infrastructure.
I just opened it. And I didn't do it.
It's okay. There's no pop.
It's a screw top. Ironically, screw top or not, this is still... Oh, God.
Yeah, so that is the trick, right? Everything becomes homogenized under one massive corporate structure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And keep in mind, because we're dealing with early whiskey stuff, we're not actually drinking anything from one of the distilleries at the time. We're just drinking dedication bottles.
Yep.
If we can find a bottle from early distillery history, that'd be amazing.
You mean like
Ironically,
Glenmore?
we do have the Glenmore. We also, apparently you can find... American medicinal spirits and Prohibition level whiskeys.
I found one of those bottles. I tried to chase it, and it was somebody wanted it really bad.
Weird. Apparently, you can find them for relatively reasonable. No,
I could not. I think that bottle went for like $800.
Jeez. Can you imagine just like a Prohibition era American medicinal spirits?
It's a half a bottle.
Yeah, it's not even a full 750, right? It's like
no,
250.
it's a full size bottle. It's just there's like the Angels definitely want their share.
Well, can't blame them.
Yeah.
All right. Oh man. Oh man.
You and I had different experiences on that smell. All right. Can I tell you?
I want you to tell me.
So you don't want to hear my impression because there are people in my life where like you tell them something and they can't unhear it. Are you one of those people? All right, cool. So have you ever had a smell trigger a memory?
Sure.
And like that memory is not super positive?
Yeah.
So this totally triggers that memory of like the first friend who puked from getting drunk. Right, so that's the like when I smelled that, I was like, oh no. So,
but you're not wrong. There is that kind of like sickly sweet like line through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like of that time where you're helping somebody and you've never drank before, you don't know why, you just see this person yakking and like losing their mind.
Yeah.
Like that's that smell trigger for me right now. I was like, oh,
Okay. All right. And like I said, like this is a controversial bottle. There are those who love it. There are those who hate it. To me, it smells like butter, creme brulee. It smells like a little bit of pepper. I want to say there's something savory right there, like bacon.
it's weird though. I put some on my tongue and now it totally smells different. Mm-hmm. It's a smooth bourbon. Like it is easily worth the $43.
Yeah. Like you put it in your mouth and it's incredible. Yeah. I mean,
this is worth the $43.
It really is. I mean, it's a great pour.
It's a fair pour for twice the price.
So I really like this. When I am out at a restaurant and I'm looking for a nice, neat pour to have with my dinner, if they've got Weller 12, I will order it. Yeah. It is.
I liked weeded bourbons though. To be fair,
yeah, they're so smooth and approachable.
I feel like a lot of industries have what I call a cheat code, and I feel like weeded bourbon is kind of a cheat code because it does smooth out the flavor. So like.
Yeah, it makes it real easy to make a good whiskey, right?
Well, yeah, but like our house bourbon for a long time was Rebel, like the Rebel 80, which was like, it's super mild, like on ABV. It's super mild on flavor. It's really mixable.
Why is that?
Well, I assume because of the weeded nature of the bourbon, right? Mm-hmm. But like it was like whatever 35 or $40 for $175 of the bourbon.
Yeah.
But it tasted great. Yeah. And like if you accidentally had a couple too many, you didn't regret it the next day, but it was nice and clean, it mixed well, like it was just super versatile.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, like this is one of the things that's really exciting to me because we're starting to get to another milestone in your whiskey journey. And that's when you start to recognize what the grain means. Or what the mash bill means, right? Like you're recognizing that this is really smooth. It's really some of these characters, and it's likely because of the wheat. And then you recognize, I've had other wheated bourbons that had some similar characters. But then, like also when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, what about a rye, like a high rye? And you start analyzing the characters that come with that, and then like mash bills where you end up with like a low rye and other things, and that's where you start getting to the point where you're like, you can sort of anticipate where you're going to get when you open the bottle, and it's a wonderful time.
Well, you talk about that, but it's actually kind of funny. So this barrel, has exactly that story associated with it.
It was wheated bourbon?
No. But this barrel is part of me learning to recognize different characteristics of grain and things that make certain flavors unique based on the grains involved.
Yeah.
This is the Jimmy Redcorn from Still Austin.
Yeah. Man, Still Austin is fantastic for different grains.
Yeah. But this is from the Redcorn. And this is... we will have to do a whole conversation about this because it ties back into me watching other YouTubers doing research about for our show.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole thing. It's a weird tie back of like 5 different things all back to literally this barrel.
Yeah.
Well, actually the year before this barrel, but still this barrel too.
I love it, man. I will say, that's one of the things I love about Still Austin. They're so good with some of their experimental stuff. Yeah. And having a good experimental distillery so close is just a win for us.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Except for my wallet. It's not a great win for my wallet.
That's true. That's probably true. But, man, it's just such an impressive bottle. Especially for $43.
Yeah. It is a staggeringly good bottle for $43.
Yes.
It is a very good bottle for $50.
Yes.
It is a very solid bottle for $75.
Yeah. I'd say even at $150, it's an okay bottle. I'd say at $200 to $250, what people are charging on the secondary market, you could get better whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? This is a great example to me about that too, right? That like for me, $75 is the edge of like it should be good and relatively unique. If you want to hit into the like 150 range, like you have to be in a. I personally feel like the 150 range is where you reach that somewhat elite level of like there's only a couple thousand bottles a year.
Yeah.
Right. Or there's something scarcity wise about it because over $75.
Or there's just something driving up the price. Unfortunately, in whiskey, scarcity is rarely the economic component.
No, but that's what I mean is like to me, one of the things to me that really justifies a price over that threshold is mostly scarcity.
Yeah, but that's because you perceive scarcity increases the value because there's less of it to go around.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also whiskeys that they're more expensive not because of the scarcity. They're scarce because of what makes them expensive. Like, so for instance, like there are whiskeys that are aged in very like unique and specialized ways.
Yeah.
And they're more expensive because of the other extra effort that goes into it. But that extra effort creates a scarcity. It's not scarce, and that's what drives up the price. The price is driven up because of the extra effort and the other things they did to it.
Right.
And then it's scarce because they only do that to a very limited amount of things.
Sure, that's splitting hairs though, and we're both bald, so that sucks for us.
Yeah,
but
that's
like, what I mean is that there's scarcity, and then there's like scarcity.
Yes.
Right. So there's
small batch.
Exactly. Small batch. What's that mean? Well, if you're Diageo, small batch means less than like 4 million bottles, and if you are not Diageo and you're some way smaller group, it could mean 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever. Right. But like, what I mean is like scarcity for me is it's a combo of the effort and the rarity of the items involved and everything. Right. And so like this is not specifically scarce. It's not released very often, which is the only real element of its scarcity.
Yep.
Right. Whereas other things are scarce because they're legitimately scarce. It's a seasonal event.
Yep.
Right. Like this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
To me it's they make a ton of it once a year.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's from a single specific harvest and whatever. Right?
And,
like whatever.
and I think, and then where I was going with it earlier was, and then there's the other level of scarcity. This was aged in this very specific wine cask, like the burning chair we did.
Yeah.
It was aged in a very specific wine cask in a very specific way in a cave or whatever.
Right.
And so, like, it's scarce, but it's scarce because they only aged one barrel.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it was literally like 5 casks or something.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, yeah, that's totally legitimately scarce.
Yeah, exactly.
And so to me,
but that was like a $50 bottle.
yeah, no, totally. But like that's reinforces my point, which is that like you could take heroic efforts and make something that's scarce. It still doesn't justify charging an arm and a leg.
Agreed. But I'm a firm believer. I think everybody kind of has their price points, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know people, and they're comfortable buying themselves another bottle as long as that bottle is $50 or less.
Yeah.
For me, I'm comfortable buying myself a bottle as long as I'm at about 120, 130 or less. I will buy a bottle on impulse for those prices.
Yeah.
Not often, but I will. And if it's a $20 bottle, I am much more likely to just grab it because it's only $20, right?
Yeah. Well, so this is like for me, right? If I saw this and I had no foundation of developing relationships with anybody, and it was just like I walked in the store, I knew what it was.
Yeah.
I saw it for $120.
Yeah.
I would buy one bottle at that price.
Yeah.
I would not buy 2.
No.
I would buy one bottle to have the opportunity to have it.
Yeah.
And then I would nurse that until I had developed all the other stuff to be able to get this at MSRP.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a good way to go about it because there's just no reason. I think 300 is about where I stop.
Yeah.
Any bottle of whiskey that's more than 300 and I start struggling with the reason why.
Yeah.
Now, I know that that's pretty low for some people, but like.
It's also super high for some people.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we just tried a bottle of Old Bond from Kirkland.
Yeah.
That was delicious.
That was arguably the second best bottle we tried today.
Yeah, it was delicious. It was better than like the $100 and some bottle that we tried earlier.
Yeah.
Like it's so important for people to understand that money does not make a good whiskey.
No.
But do you know who does make a good whiskey?
Weller.
Weller does. Sir, I want to raise a glass to you.
I can't toast you. I'm empty.
Oh, we need to pour more Weller. Well, how sad that is. Oh, no.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Is that enough?
That's totally fine. I just can't have an empty glass. It's bad luck. Bad luck.
Okay.
It's your bottle. I mean,
Yeah. Here, have more. I was making a joke, and then you were like, "Yeah, that's fine." And
I'm
I was
a big dude.
"Oh."
I don't know. I'll take whatever you got.
I was like, "Oh shit!" Now I feel like a douchebag because I meant to pour you more. Okay, sir.
To you, buddy. To the bond.
To the bond.